Brothers and sisters, now we will move on to our second speech of the day. Our second speaker today, he hails from a well-known religious family of Peterborough, one of our own. Sheikh Mohammad Esmail, after completing a law degree in the UK, he went to Qom and spent 10 years at Hausa, specializing in Quran and Hadith. He has taught in Qom, Damascus, and in the UK, helped establish the World Federation's Qom Education Office, and served as a senior lecturer at the Islamic College, where he previously led Hausa and Quranic and Arabic programs, and also directed research and publications. He holds a doctorate from Middlesex University, and his publications include an annotated translation of Tawzi'ul Masail and several textbooks and articles. It is my honor to invite Sheikh Dr. Mohammad Esmail to address us on the topic, A Path to Spiritual Clarity. Please welcome Sheikh with a loud salawat. Mohammad, Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد. Respected scholars, my elders, brothers, sisters, children, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. A very warm Eid Mubarak to you all. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. And I'd like to thank the organizers, especially Maulana Maqbul Hussain Alawi, for inviting me to share some reflections on this wonderful, profound work, Nahjul Balagha. As we heard just a few moments ago, it's a book that has been described as being the speech which is above that of creation, but speech which is below that of the Creator. And inshallah, I would like to focus my presentation today on letter 31 of Nahjul Balagha. And the three themes that I'd like to go through in terms of this letter are seeing, being, and doing. And we'll see how this very deeply and very moving and spiritually illuminating work of Nahjul Balagha takes us through this journey, in particular with regards to our spiritual development. Now, I'd like to start off by just giving some context about this wonderful letter 31. As we heard just a few moments ago, context is so important. In fact, there's a saying, a text without context is a pretext. That's how important context is. So the context of this letter is that Amirul Mu'mineen Imam Ali alayhi salam was coming back from Siffin. There he writes this letter. Now the letter is addressed most likely to his son Imam al-Hasan salawatullah wasalamu alayhi. But of course, over the centuries, it's a letter that has been read by so many Muslims as inspiration and guidance for them. So it's not purely a letter to one person, it's a letter for us all. And it's a very beautiful and one of the longest letters in the Nahjul Balagha. Out of about 79 letters, this is perhaps the second longest letter. And it's not just a list of rules, it's actually a journey of the soul. It portrays how a person can move from spiritual darkness to illumination. And it does this in those three ways, by explaining the seeing concept of spiritual life, the being concept of it, and the doing aspect of it. So to get a better idea of how these three themes work in this letter, picture, just for a moment, a person who's on a journey. This person is going down the path. It's totally dark right now. And he's struggling to see where he's going to go. He doesn't know where the pitfalls are. He can't tell which way to go, turn left, right, or even if he's going in the right direction. Then a lamp is lit. This person now sees the path. This is the seeing aspect of this letter. Now that he sees the path, he's able to follow it. At least he knows now where to go, which direction to turn, and the potential obstacles to avoid. As he carries on going down this path, the light gets brighter and brighter. Because he's following this path of spiritual development, the light gets stronger. Now there comes a point where the light is no longer external. The light becomes internal. That person becomes the light. And now that he becomes the light, it then manifests the person's whole being into action. This is the doing part. He's not only become, but now he is acting. So now he can navigate all the path's perils and make sure that he's going to arrive at the destination. This is what letter 31 does. It takes us on this journey of seeing, being, and then finally doing. So while I go over this journey with you all, I'd like to also draw upon a very famous story in the Quran. I like to do this so that we get proper application of these three concepts, and we can see how a very particular group mentioned in the Quran demonstrated their spiritual seeing, their spiritual being, and their spiritual doing. And in this way, we will get an idea of how these concepts can be applied in lived experience. That story is the story of Ashabul Kahf. And we see in the Quran, a whole chapter, chapter 18, is named after this story, Surah Al-Kahf. And these people, the amazing thing, and one of the reasons why I decided to use this story as illustrative of these three concepts is because they weren't prophets. They weren't scholars. They were just a group of believers who found themselves on this dark path without any light. Then they got some light, so they saw. Then they became. Then they did. Then they were never the same again. We'll see how that transpires as we go through this letter. So part one, the seeing part, when the lamp is lit. In this wonderful letter, Amir al-Mu'mineen tells initially his son, but of course, like I mentioned, this advice is for all Muslims, that you were created for the hereafter, not for this world. You are in a temporary dwelling. This is the seeing aspect. He's illuminating the path. What is our ultimate aim? What is our objectives? What are we here for? I'll give you an example. A person checks in to a hotel room. He's only going to be there for a day or so. So he checks in. Now, when he gets to that room, he has a good look around. And he sees that, okay, I don't really like the pictures on the wall. He goes out and buys pictures, right? And he puts them on the wall. Then the furniture, he doesn't like it. So he starts ordering furniture. He has a word with the guest next door about the colors of the curtains. What's happening here? Instead of occupying the room is occupying him. He's only supposed to be there for one night, to rest, to have some breakfast perhaps the next morning, then go to the conference, the meeting, or whatever he came for. He's turned the aim the other way around. The room becomes the aim. And he is totally preoccupied by this. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen says that it's like that. If you take this world to be your destination. It's like that person who goes to that hotel room and thinks that they're going to be there for such a long time that they give all their time and energy and wealth and effort in improving their stay in that time. They've missed the point totally. You are not created for this world. You are created for the hereafter. He's now explaining the path and enlightening it for that traveler. But, of course, he doesn't just say things. He demonstrated in practice everything that he preached. Everything that he writes in this letter, he showed us in practice. I'll give you an example. So, once when he was about to go to Jamal, Abdullah ibn Abbas comes to him and he sees Amir al-Mu'mineen sitting with his sandal in his hand. You know what he's doing? He's actually stitching his own sandal. Now remember, context, right? Context, he is the caliph. He is in charge of thousands and thousands. He is the ruler of the ummah. He has control over the treasury. He has this station, the status of being Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yet, he is found mending his own sandal. How many leaders like that do you know? So then he asks Ibn Abbas that, how much value do you give to this sandal? Ibn Abbas says, well, it has no value. It's just a broken old sandal, right? How does he reply? He says to him, this sandal would have more value in my eyes were it not for the fact that by ruling over you, I am able to defend a truth and to repel a falsehood. It would have more value than ruling over you if it wasn't for that, in order to make something happen that Allah is pleased with, in order to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore we see in this very simple example of him living the instruction of not using and not seeing this world as our final abode. In another part of Nahjul Balagha, Sermon 165, he says that gaze with the eye of your heart at paradise and your soul would recoil from the marvels of this world. Now, notice the wording here. He doesn't despise the world. He says marvels of this world. It means the world does have beauty. It does have so much going for it. There are so many good things about the world. The dunya is not all bad. Some aspects of it, become bad depending on how human beings react with it and deal with others and so on. But he talks about the marvels of this world. What he's saying here is that there is something greater in comparison with what you should be aiming for. You will not find any comparison. You will recoil from this world and its marvels. And in fact, one of the things that we find whenever we read the Nahjul Balagha is that it is so aligned with the Quran, right? It is totally aligned with it. Every time we look at Nahjul Balagha, we can find corresponding verses that support exactly what has been said. And this is the case here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-A'la, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Bal tu'thiruna al-hayat ad-dunya wal-akhiratu khayrun wa abqa. That the person actually has a distorted view. The distortion is the fact that the person prefers the life of this world while the hereafter is better and more lasting. This distortion comes in because the person is preferring something temporary, something inferior. Now, remember I said that we're going to use the story of Ashabul Kahf to demonstrate all of these concepts that Amir al-Mu'mineen is talking about in this letter 31. The first instance is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them in this very simple line, Surah Al-Kahf, verse number 13. إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. They were noble young men who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. Now, what is happening here? The lamp has been lit. They know their path. They believed in their Lord. And that time of darkness, context once again, at that time, it was a society of idol worshippers. There was a tyrannical king who was persecuting those who didn't hold the same beliefs as him. And therefore, they had to take up a stance. It was a path of darkness, but the lamp is lit. Look at the first part in particular. إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ. Their belief is that light. Now, when they carried on believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and demonstrating their firm faith, remember I said earlier, when somebody goes down that path, that light becomes stronger, it becomes brighter. So this is exactly what's happening in the second part of this verse. وَزِدْنَاهُمْ huda. That light is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. And then, of course, comes the second step, which is that light becomes part of them. They become the light. It's no longer external, it becomes internal. So this brings us on to part 2. Being the light within. This is when that light becomes rooted in a person. He's followed the guidance so much, he can see properly that now that light has become rooted, firmly placed within his soul. And he's able to illuminate the path in front of him and the path for others. He becomes the lamp. So here, Amir al-Mu'mineen, again turning to the letter, he says that I counsel you, my dear son, to have taqwa and to hold fast to his command. This is really the heart of his whole counsel, taqwa. Because now it's all about being. It's that internal trait. It's no longer a flash that he sees in the dark. Oh, for a second he sees something. No, remember that path is totally illuminated for him. Not only that, but he has become the lamp. And so taqwa is the heart of the counsel that he gives. Taqwa is that state that safeguards someone from everything that takes that person away from God. Not only that, but then taqwa also directs that person in everything he does, in all his choices, in all his intentions. And so now, let's have a look at how Amir al-Mu'mineen again doesn't just say it, doesn't just write it in the letter, he demonstrates it. For this, I'll turn to the sermon of the God-weary, Khutbatul Muttaqeen, Khutbatul Hammam as it's known, because the questioner was someone called Hammam. Hammam comes up to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he asks him that describe for me the qualities of the God-conscious, the God-weary, the muttaqeen, right? Those who have taqwa, as though I can see them. Amir al-Mu'mineen initially just gives him a simple answer. He's not satisfied with that. He persists. He wants the full description. Then Imam Ali alayhi salam starts describing 110 characteristics of those who have taqwa. At the end, that Hammam, he gives out a single cry and he dies. His heart could not take the description of the muttaqeen. I was thinking about this. How is it possible somebody dies when they hear something profound, right? Well, we're always told that speak from the heart. If you speak from the heart, it settles in someone's heart, right? I think this is what happened here. Amir al-Mu'mineen was speaking so sincerely, so eloquently, so profoundly from his heart, Because he was not just describing external people, he was describing himself. And that sat in the heart of Hammam, and his heart could no longer take it. I believe in this, that yeah, it is possible. When you have the embodiment of taqwa, explaining what taqwa is in such a profound way, it can lead to the death of someone who's receptive enough to hear it. So then, when we look at these qualities, one of them is this. One of them is that when the muttaqi pass a verse of longing, they reach for it. When they pass a verse of warning, they can almost hear the fire. Allahu Akbar. This is something I thought, let me bring this part of the 110 qualities, because it's something practical we can all go away with today. Right? So a practical takeaway that when we read the Quran, we shouldn't just read it fast and then move on as soon as we can. Take our time, slowly. When we get to a verse that talks about Allah's mercy, pause, reflect over it. In fact, position ourselves in that scene. Let's say it's about, for example, in Surah Shura, right? Fariqun fil Jannah. Wow, okay, I could easily move on. The verse says there's a party in Jannah. I stop, I pause. I long for it. I reach for it. I pray to Allah, oh Allah, give me this Jannah. And that will incentivize me to then strive for it more. But then the verse goes on to say, وَفَرِيقٌ فِي السَّعِيرِ. There's a party in the blaze, in the fire. When they pass a verse of warning, they can almost hear the fire. Here, again, I use my imagination. I place myself there in the fire, being punished. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, to keep me away from the fire. This is what Amir al-Mu'mineen is telling us, how to interact very practically with the Quran so that we actually live it. We don't just read it, we make it a book of our guidance. And therefore, this actually, when I looked into it, it's described by psychologists as, they have a term for it. They call it dual coding, right? Dual coding is when you gain much, much more because you are combining two things. You are combining words and images, right? Dual coding is when you do that. You visualize, you combine the two, and that meaning becomes much more personalized, much more impactful and meaningful for you. But Amir al-Mu'mineen is not just using the words and the images. It's not just that. He says, make it part of your emotions. That's another step. And then a final step is that make it transformative for your soul. So he brings in not just words of the Quran. He's saying don't just read the words. Don't just visualize the scene, the place of mercy, the place of punishment, but also attach it to your emotions and then make it transformative for your soul. And therefore, this is how he advises us in this letter with regards to the being part. Now, this is what we must do then, inshallah, if we're not doing it already. Slowly, reading the Quran slowly, with the heart awake, leaning towards its hope, trembling at its warning. What about Ashabul Kahf? How did they embody the being part of this letter? Well, look at the verses. وَرَبَّطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ إِذْ قَامُوا فَقَالُوا رَبُّنَا رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Because they had that light, and Allah increased their light, now, and we bound their hearts firm. Allah has made that light part of them. They are the lamp now. When they rose up and said, our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. So now that seeing has hardened into something solid inside them. It has taken root. So now it brings us to the third and final part. They saw spiritually. They were spiritual. How was that now manifested in their actions? Because we cannot just remain at that point. It's very good. But we have to demonstrate all of this taqwa, the inner light in our actions, in righteous conduct. So now this brings me to the third and final part, which is doing. Walking the road with your own light, with that light from within. Now it becomes relatively easy because it's part of you. And that taqwa will safeguard you from everything that takes you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what I did here, because the letter is quite long, like I said, is the second longest letter in the Nahj, I didn't look at those parts that talk about doing this and doing that, like actually actively doing something. I looked at a part that talks about restraint, not doing. Sometimes for us, not doing something is better and greater in reward and in the eyes of Allah than actually doing. Restraint is so difficult. We shouldn't think that restraint and avoiding and moving away is not amal. Amal, we think action, right? And we must do salah. We must, for example, help others. We must give charity, etc., right? Yeah, that's all necessary and excellent. But how about the other side, the restraint side? Look what he says in this letter about restraint. The courage to hold back. Why is restraint so valuable? Restraint, doesn't it require utmost effort? That's valuable in the eyes of Allah. Doesn't it require intention, sincere intention? Doesn't it require commitment? All of these things are very valuable in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, what does he tell his son and us all in this letter about this? He says that restraint is so important. He talks about not speaking about things you don't know. This is not doing. Don't speak about things you don't know. Secondly, don't interfere in matters over which you have no responsibility. How many times do we see this happening? People speaking about what they don't know, interfering in matters that don't concern them. And thirdly, don't go down the route that will lead you astray, because restraint at the moment of confusion is better than plunging into danger. Keep control, right? That's part of taqwa. Taqwa is not always about doing. It's about sometimes not doing. There's a temptation there. There's a worldly thing there that is not connected to Allah. I need to avoid it and refrain from it. But now, again, he doesn't just say it, doesn't just write it, he shows us. Of course, this example that he shows us, this restraint, is very well known. It's the example of when he fought Amr ibn Abdi Wud in the Battle of Khandaq. Okay, everybody knows it. But look at it inshallah, with this type of insight. He defeated Amr ibn Abdi Wud, right, the chief warrior of the disbelievers in the Battle of the Trench. And then when he was about to finish him off, he's on his chest. All he has to do is the final deed, and that's it, done. He's seen to get up. He's seen to walk away. And then to come back and then finish off Amr ibn Abdi Wud. When he goes back to the camp, they ask him, "Oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, we saw that you could have killed him right then. Why did you get up, walk away, then come back and then kill him?" He says, "Well, when I was on his chest, he spat at my face. When he did that, it made me very angry. And I didn't want to kill him out of my anger." Restraint. Not doing. When it's so tempting, it's right there. It's so easy. Restraint. Then he says that I then came back, sat on him and killed him because I wanted it to be an act purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma salli. So now let's have a look at how the Ashabul Kahf put this final peace into practice. وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. And when you have withdrawn, right? They've got that light they're seeing. They've got that inner being, the lamp. Now it's action, isn't it? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them, withdraw, withdraw. Why? Because they were in that very dangerous society, dark society of idol worshippers with that tyrannical king. They could not change the situation. Sometimes we're in that position where we can't change it. And so we have to withdraw. And then, so when you've withdrawn from them and what they worship besides God, take refuge in the cave. So a couple of questions for all my dear brothers and sisters and children. That, okay, how does this work? What part of your city must you turn away from? Here, the city in this Ashabul Kahf story is all those things that are keeping us away from God, and they are slowly taking away our iman. They are making us weak. They had to refrain from interaction in that society. So what is our city? They had to go. Our city, it could be a whole load of things. Pressures, it could be attachments, it could be certain relationships, it could be certain ambitions, it could be worldly things that don't have any connection with us getting closer to Allah. It could be spending all of our time scrolling, right? Wasting our time. It could be anything, like whatever is your city. No need to tell me what your city is. You know what your city is. I know what mine is. But then secondly, where is your cave? Ashabul Kahf is such an important story because it's full of symbolism. The cave is also our refuge. What is your cave? Now, of course, this is a gathering of mu'mineen. So we'll have caves, right? We'll have caves. We'll have our salah. We'll have our Quran. We'll have our Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We'll have the other acts of worship. We'll have our du'as and ziyarat. Alhamdulillah. Are they your caves? Very good. So now what? Strengthen your caves. Go deeper in your caves. Because you've still got at least one city, perhaps cities. And therefore, you need to follow in the example of Ashabul Kahf as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had instructed them and as Amirul Mu'mineen tells us in this letter. So then what happens in the end? Of course, the story goes full circle because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts a veil of sleep over them. They sleep for about 309 years. They think it's just a day. Allah turns them left, right. People don't realize that they're actually sleeping. Then one of them goes into the marketplace thinking that it's just the next day. He has within the coins that he had way back 309 years ago. He tries to spend it. Then it becomes apparent that this was a miracle. This happened 309 years ago. And therefore it becomes a sign. A sign of what? A sign of Allah's power, right? To resurrect and to keep people like that. And also a sign of the resurrection itself. The resurrection itself. So really, they've come around full circle. Remember I said they saw, they were, and they did. And then they became something that they weren't before. Now, it's a new realization. The tyrant has gone. There are believers now in society. Everything has changed. They are now seeing with a new light. So the journey has become full circle. And so, to end with, what is the reward of us who follow the example that Amirul Mu'mineen has described so well in this work of Nahjul Balagha? In the Quran we are told, the first part, up to the word fiha, for me, it's easier to understand. The second part, I find it very difficult to understand. Lahum ma yasha'una fiha. So those believers, right, if they fulfill all of these things, if they have that seeing, being, and doing, they shall have whatever they desire therein, right? Therein meaning in Jannah. Okay, we started with Jannah, we're going to finish with Jannah, right? The hereafter. Whatever they wish. So think about all the wishes you have. What do you want? What do you want? In Jannah, you got it. Think about something else. What do you want? You want that? You got it. Because whatever you want, you get it, right? That's Jannah. That's how it is. That's our promise. The second part is very difficult. I don't get it. I don't get it. وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيد. And with us is more. How does that work? There's only one explanation. That is Allah's grace. That is Allah's favor. That is not dependent on my deeds. My deeds don't deserve all of that. This is Allah's mazid. He gives us even more. You know all those things that we all wanted, we wished for? We got them, right? Still Allah gives us more. وَلَدَيْنَا mazid. Now, it all depends, of course, what we want to wish for, right? What we think about. Sometimes an astronomer will wish to find a planet that's never been discovered, and hopefully will be named after him. A poet might think that, oh, I wish I could write some poetry that will echo through the ages. But if I don't have any interest in astronomy or in poetry, will I think of those things? No. I'll think about whatever interests me, whatever I'm engaged in, isn't it? In this world, wherever I'm engaged, that's what I want. So when I go to Jannah, I will wish for things at my level. But isn't that telling us something? Our aspirations need to be higher. Our aspirations need to be higher because there are things that we will get if we wish for them. If we wish, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give me a house. He'll give me a house. Wow, big deal. Shouldn't my aspiration be higher? If I'm seeing correctly, it will be higher. I'll end with this final point. Look how Hakim Ilahi Kumshay, this great scholar who died in the 70s, wished for. Look what he wished for. Look at his aspiration. His aspiration wasn't just an ordinary thing here and there. His aspiration was to sit beside the fountain of Kawthar and recite Nahjul Balagha in the presence of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Whatever you wish for, you get. It depends on your aspiration. What have I used my world for? Have I really thought that I have been created for this world? Well, if I have, then I might wish for a nice car or a nice house and this and that relating to what I have been engaged with. But if my life has been in the service of Nahjul Balagha, like the lives of so many of the organizers here, mashallah, if my life has been in the service of the Quran, in the service of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, what I wish for will be higher. وَلَدَيْنَا mazid. And on top of that, Allah out of His grace and mercy and favor, inshallah, will give us even more. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to see, be, and do as Amir al-Mu'mineen saw, was, and did. Wassalamu alaikum rahmatullah.
Now we'll open the floor for questions. If there are any questions from the brother's side or the sister's side, we can take them. And after that, will be a refreshment break. Some smiles. Okay, there's a question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So in the opening, I think few slides, the statement regarding, I think maybe it's not rule-based, but it's a journey.
Yes.
And then there was another statement towards probably the middle of the presentation about the heart and the counsel.
Yes.
And taqwa being the objective.
Right.
So can one achieve that journey and taqwa without any rules?
Right, right. Good question. So when I said that it's not, the letter is not a list of rules, it's a journey. What I meant was the three aspects of that journey: the seeing and the being and the doing. And taqwa cannot be attained without the doing, right? It cannot be enhanced without the doing, right? Because when someone acts, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them more, right? He gives them more. He increases them in their taqwa. And it's not just a matter of like being enlightened and that's it. You have to act. So there has to be a set of rules and guidelines, the Sharia, it has to be adhered to. So the answer is no, there have to be rules. But what this was about the letter itself. The letter is not a list of rules. It's not, very like, so some people might think that, okay, it's the letter, it's at the end of Amir al-Mu'mineen's life, it might just be, do this, do this, do this. It's not like that. That's what I wanted to say there. And then the second part about the heart, yeah, the counsel, the taqwa. Have I answered it already? Yeah, does it link in with that? Okay, right.
Any questions from the sister side?
Walaikum salam.
You talked about the seeing, being and doing. Sometimes we see qualities in others that are their light, and we perhaps try to copy them because we don't know what our own light is. So what advice would you give to try and recognize our own light so we can then do?
Right, very good, yeah. It all depends on who that person is. Sometimes a person with light will be such a great role model for us that, yeah, it's absolutely fine to follow that role model, gain inspiration from them, and try to do what they are doing. That's absolutely fine. And of course, the highest role models are the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But in this day and age, yeah, we have so many, mashallah, mu'mineen around us who, from whom we can gain inspiration. So that's absolutely fine. The problem arises when the light, or it's not even light, because you can only have light if you are guided and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with that thing. So it wouldn't apply to those who are sinners, those who are wrongdoers. But what happens here is that it appears to be some light. That's the problem. It appears that they have something. And what happens to us is that we get attracted to it, not realizing that actually it's not really light. It's just something they have, and we have been attracted to it, and now we, ma'adallah, even go for it. So that's very, very important to distinguish who has it and what is it that they have. Is it light, or is it some type of, glitter that is just like fake gold or something like that, fool's gold, Is it kind of like deceiving us? Because let's say, it's a celebrity, and that celebrity seems to have it all, and we get attracted. And then if we get some guidance from people, we realize that actually it's not light in the sense that yamshi bihi finna, right? So the Quran tells us about this as well. The person is able to walk with that light among the people. So yeah, we have to be very careful about who has that thing, a light or otherwise, and then try to make sure that we're only following those who truly are meant to be followed. Yeah.
Sorry, I think I wasn't very clear in my question.
Okay.
What I meant was that sometimes, people find their path, and we perhaps ourselves haven't found our path, so we try to copy them. So how do we find our path?
Okay. How do we find our path? Our path is right in front of us, in fact. Now, sometimes I tell people this, and they get, astonished. And I'm thinking to myself, well, don't you have the Quran at home? The Quran is the most important thing that we have in this world. It is the most important thing. And it's an object that supersedes every other object that exists. That's one thing. We also have the Nahjul Balagha. We also have the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And so the path, it is there. We have scholars, we have role models in the community. So I would say that the path is there. It's not that it's not, it's just that we are failing to recognize it as the path for us. That's why the very, very first thing is this. I think if somebody was to start with this part here about the hereafter being the what we should be aiming for, not this world, that in itself will really enlighten the path for us. I think that's the first thing. Think about, okay, what are we here for? What is my purpose? And then once we realize it is the hereafter, not that resolves so many things.